This is a good one. Hi, this is about the Oktava MK-012 or 012. It comes in a nice wooden box, and the box itself reminds me of when I was a school kid, because we used to make these things when I was a kid at school, with the same sort of buckling arrangement as well. So when you open it up, there's the whole set inside. And you have, of course, the microphone body, which they refer to as the amplifier. So that's the amplifying section. 3 heads. That's an Omni Cardioid, hyper-cardioid, and this little funny thing which grips the microphone. I wouldn't be happy booming this and holding it, but if it was on a stand, it would be all right. You pinch it. Looks a bit lethal. You pinch it, put your microphone in, and it holds it. So it's pretty good. It's quite tight too, actually. And this thing, which is quite unusual, this is the 10 dB attenuator. Now the attenuator screws to the top of the microphone, so unlike other things where you have switches, this one actually has an attenuator. You can buy these separately if you just buy the body. If you want to buy the body on its own and one head, you can do that as well. But you put the attenuator on the top, and then when you've got the attenuator on the top, you get the capsule, the weapon of your choice, and you screw that to the attenuator, and there's your microphone. Now without the attenuator, it's actually a very small microphone. So if I take it off and just show you how small this thing is, and the other thing I like about it is that it's very light. So if you want to boom it on a cheap boom stand, it's actually quite easy because it's so light. It's incredibly small. There's my hand, and look, it's really quite small. If I compare it to my head, it's a very small microphone. And you can see that it's got a flared capsule at the top. The one I've got on at the moment, this is just the hypercardioid, and they all have this shape, this flare at the end. So that's what the Oktava actually looks like. Inside the box, you get this manual, which is in different languages. So if you're buying abroad, you're going to hopefully understand what they're going on about in here. It tells you how to use the microphone. But more interestingly is they give you 3 pieces of paper. Now, they didn't say anything about this, and I just found it. And actually, these are individualized graphs for each capsule. And there are 3 lines. Now, for anyone that might not understand the 3 lines, let me just show you. This one is the Omni. Now, if I show you the Omni very quickly, that tells you that there are 3 lines there. One is the response for the microphone on the front. The next one down is the microphone on the side, and the next one down is the microphone from the rear. So you can see with the Omni, all 3 responses are pretty close, which means it is actually an Omni, but it also gives you a frequency response for each place where you hold it. So that's the Omni, where all 3 are close together. Now, if you look at this one, this is the cardioid. You'll see a different type of graph. Again, it gives the frequency response, but this time you'll see that they're more spread apart. So the top one is straight ahead, straight forward. The middle one is at 90 degrees, so you can see it's rejecting slightly to the side. And then the bottom one is the rear rejection, where you can see it's rejecting quite a lot to the rear. Actually, looking at the rear rejection, it's quite lumpy, it's quite bumpy down on the rear there. You can see that, but that's the cardioid. And the other one, the hypercardioid, is this one, where both the side and the back, you can see, are separated from the top. So you've got more of a front end response. But the funny thing is here is I can see, I'm looking through the back here, so that's the bass end. There's quite a rise in the bass level there if you're going to record at 90 degrees, and a drop off in the bass, which is unusual, isn't it, for a hypercardioid, from the rear. So that's quite unusual. But this is an individualized graph. These are individualized for my microphone. The Omni Capsule gives a brighter sound when it's on axis. It's slightly brighter than the other 2, but it's mostly flat from about 30 Hz to 5 kHz, and then it gives a slight sort of presence peak in about 4 dB in the top octaves. The Cardioid capsule has a brighter top end response, and it basically has a flat frequency response from about 100 Hz to 15 kHz. That's pretty wide. The Hypercardioid has quite a big rejection at 90 degrees. It has a flat mid-range and slightly attenuated bass and treble, and it's a favourite with videographers. It's basically flat from about 200 Hz to 8 kHz with a little 3D per octave roll off beyond those points. So let's see what it sounds like. This is the MK12 being used with the Omnidirectional Capsule on the top. So with this one, if you've looked at the graph, you'll see that it's more sensitive on the front, although it's still sensitive around the back and the sides, but it's not as sensitive as the front. So although it's Omni, it's not totally Omni, but this capsule is really useful if you want to collect sound from different areas. For instance, if you're interviewing 3 people, say, you could place this in the middle and pick up pretty evenly, actually. So this is the sound from the front. This is the sound from the side, and I would expect it to be virtually the same. This is the sound from the back, and at this position probably the body of the microphone itself is stopping the microphone from picking up quite so well. Back to the side and back to the front. This is the sound of the cardioid capsule on top of the Oktava, and with this one it'll pick up mostly from the front and reject from the rear, and you get some on the sides. So this is the one that's most commonly used with this microphone. In actual fact, a lot of people use only this capsule. This one is good for rejection from the rear, as I said earlier. So if you've got a reflective surface behind your microphone, this is the one to use. So this is the sound from the front, this is the sound from the side, this is the sound from the rear. Now I'd expect this to be dead. I'd expect the sound to be coming back now, and then from the front it should be back to normal. So that's the cardioid capsule. The capsule I'm using now is the hypercardioid capsule, so this has got much more pickup from the front. This one is more like a favourite for film people that are going to make videos, because it's got a good pickup from the front. So here we are from the front, this is from the side, this is from the side rear, this is from the rear and coming to the side and back to the front again. This one is good if you've got not too many reflective surfaces perhaps behind it, but a lot of videographers would use something like this, and many people like to boom this one as well. Now, just to serve as a comparison, I'm going to compare this one. This is the cardioid head with the cardioid head of the SE8, the SE Electronics, because many people have said to me, how does the SE8 compare to the Oktava? So this is the sound from the Oktava using the cardioid head only. And now I'm going to switch over and show you the SE8, which also has a cardioid head, but you can't take the head off of that one. This one has 3 heads with it as a set in the one I've got anyway, whereas with the SE8 you only get the cardioid capsule fixed. The microphone I'm using now is the SE Electronics SE8, and this one is basically a fixed cardioid. You can't change the head. So that's how the sound compares to the Oktava. This is the sound of the omnidirectional head on the Oktava being boomed above my head, and it's just about, I'm just pointing at it now, so if I've just touched it actually, so there, I'm just there. That's how far away the microphone is. And again, because this is an omnidirectional capsule, it's very likely that it might be picking up quite a bit of the room. You just never know. But with these things, it's best to put on a pair of headphones and have a really good listen before you make the final recording. So this is the Omni head being used, boomed above my head. Now I'm back to one that's normally boomed above the head, because this one, a lot of people like the sound of this particular capsule, and that's the cardioid. It has a pretty good frequency response, and so I've now boomed the cardioid above my head, same place as the Omni was. Hopefully it's picking up a little bit less of the room. I must admit that in my front room very often I do actually prefer a super or hypercardioid. They seem to reject the noise of the room, the sound of the room, a lot easier than sometimes even a cardioid. But that's the sound of the cardioid, and this is one that's very commonly boomed in a lot of recording situations. This is the hypercardioid capsule being boomed above my head in exactly the same position, and this is probably the one that most people that want to make films or videos would want to use, because it's more directional, slightly more directional actually than the cardioid itself, but it's got a very nice smooth sound as well. So a lot of people like this microphone for making videos and recording video sound with. So that's the sound of the hypercardioid boomed, same place above my head. Just to act as a comparison, this is the cardioid head again, so I'm back to the cardioid head boomed above me, and what I'm going to do is compare it directly with the SE Electronics SE8 boomed above the head. And finally, this is the SE Electronics SE8 boomed above my head, so you can compare the sound of the SE8 with the Oktava MK-012. So that's the sound of the SE Electronics. The Oktava MK-012 is designed as a multi-capsule system, so you can get low high pass filters where you cut the bass a bit. You've got the 10 dB attenuator, which you just screw on just the same way as the high pass. You've got the three heads here for the pencil mic, but then you can also get larger heads as well for it. So it's quite a system actually that's available, and you can buy each thing separately, which is incredible. So it's a whole sort of system in itself. To be honest, the SE8, the SE Electronics, the SE8, and this one, the Oktava MK-012, are the two mics that I actually use the most because I just like the sound of them. The SE8 is more sensitive and gives out a little bit more output in comparison to the Oktava, but I do like the Oktava sound. I wouldn't describe it as perfectly flat, but it's got a very, very pleasant sound which seems to suit the voice fantastically. The Hypercardioid Capsule is superb for video. It really is very, very good. Hope to see you next time. Cheers for now.